Greetings, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. I guess if you're on the East Coast, it's just turning afternoon. Happy Wednesday morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We have a really cool webinar. My hope is that everyone leaves today with something that will help them tomorrow better have conversations, educate their clients, something they weren't doing before, or they're going to be doing it in a better way. So I'm really excited. We've been working a year on some of these updates, and we have a really cool day in store for us. Before we get started, I want to thank our title partners. Our title companies have supported us for 20 years, believing in this app, sponsoring the app so that it can be free for all of you, and helping us with taxes and fees and all the local data that makes it so powerful, and helping us distribute it and train it. And so thank your title partners that brought you to this webinar today and brought you the app, and thank them with your business. That's why they're investing in tools and products and ways to make you better, because if you win, they win. And so I just wanted to say special thanks to all of our title partners for helping us get here. We've got almost 20,000 real estate agents across the country on this webinar today, which is incredible. It makes it one of the biggest webinars of the year. And so I'm really excited. I'm going to give everybody a few more minutes to jump on. If you wouldn't mind in the chat, just jumping in and telling us where you're from. That's always fun, just to see all of the names from all over the country, all of the users. I'm Jeremy Davis. I've been with PalmAgent now 25 years. I'm the CEO. This is all I've ever done. Last job was waiting tables. I love real estate. Both my parents were brokers since the early 80s. I've been in a real estate family my whole life, and really excited to get the webinar going today. We also have a special guest, David Childers. I don't know if you know David. I'm sure you do. Keeping Current Matters. He is the best voice I've heard in the industry. It not just taking complex information, but more importantly, simplifying it. It takes a sophistication to help us understand exactly today what's going on in the market. And I don't believe in crazy markets, but this is a confusing market. There's a lot of things happening with interest rates and prices and inventory, and not to mention the news, which is going to progressively get more out of control as time goes on. We're getting hit from more directions. Our clients, more importantly, are getting hit from more directions. So I asked David to come on just for a few minutes and help us understand what's happening in the market. And then also, we're going to show you some of the stuff that we've created in response to what's happening in the market with inventory prices and interest rates, just to kind of help you provide clarity for your customers along those lines. So what I'd like to do, we're going to go a little different today. I'm going to show you a few updates we've made and a few of the basic programs in PalmAgent. Then I'm going to bring David on, and then I'm going to show you two of the newer programs that we've launched that I think will really help you provide clarity to your buyers and sellers in this market. So let's just jump in. We got a lot to do and get started. I'm going to pull up my phone. Now I'm using PalmAgent, and I'm using Texas numbers. That's where I'm at, is Texas. And so just if you're doing this along with me, which I advise you do, make sure you have the latest version, and know that your numbers are going to be slightly different, because we customize this for every market, in every county, in every city, all the local title fees and taxes and rates. And so just know that the program will look the same, but the numbers are going to be a little different if you're following along. Now, across the bottom here, just to kind of remind everybody, you have your buyer's button and your seller's button. I call this the stake of PalmAgent. This is kind of what brought us to popularity with over 500,000 users across the country. Was real estate math is complicated. My mother, she loved real estate. She loved helping people, but the math part was probably her biggest stumbling block. That's the part she hated. She hated a few other parts too, but mainly it was the confusion around math and numbers. It's a car payment's complicated, and you throw taxes and insurance and PMI and all this stuff, and it gets complicated. And buyers and sellers are always going to have math questions. And so we've tried to go in and simplify some of that, and that kind of pivots around the buyers and sellers button. Then we have the calculators tab at the bottom, premium, and I'll get into some of that. But what I wanted to do is start with a simple seller's net sheet and kind of show you this is what made us popular, I would say, is the seller's net sheet, and why we created it while we're getting started. And then some of the new enhancements that we've made for everyone, where we're buying data. We just have access to new technology now that we didn't have. It's called PalmAgent because it started on a Palm Pilot. And some of these calculations we do now, I think, would have melted the Palm Pilots, the processors. It's doing some pretty heavy lifting now. But the seller's net sheet was created because the industry, we all go out. Most of our sellers care about what they're going to make, what they're going to pay in title fees. Most of them are vocal about it, but some of them aren't. But most of them care. Like, what do you charge me for real estate commissions? What are closing costs going to be? What are title fees going to be? And most importantly, what's left for us at the end of all of this? And often we get out on listing presentations and we get surprises. They're interviewing a few different agents, and they see that you see the inside of the house isn't what you first anticipated. Now, if you pre-worked up a net sheet provided to you by your title company or your team, or you created it, you don't even want to show it to them. So we said, let's put an easy solution on your phone, and watch how this has kind of evolved. I'm going to go up here and start with add address. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to highlight it here just to make sure you see it. I'm clicking the sellers tab. I'm going to hit add address, and I'm going to start with the property address, because now we can get some data that really helps influence the seller's net sheet and make it faster than ever. And also, if you're sitting at your kid's soccer game and his best friend's parents are up in the stands talking about wanting to sell, if you can get their address, we can really start putting some of the blocks together on them moving into another home or buying their dream home or getting that extra bedroom. So the first thing we can pull for you, property taxes, prorating those to the closing date, influences their net. So we can pull last year's property taxes. Now, you can always edit these and change them, but we can go ahead and pull that for you and show you. So you say, okay, great. That's one important part of the net sheet. Then the next thing we can do is we can show you that when was the last loan recorded, and assuming they've been making their payments to today, how much should they owe right now? $574. Now, we also take the average rate of that year that will get you really close. But let's say that they knew they had a 3% rate, because often our sellers know they have a 3% rate. I think this is so cool. Then you say, okay, they had a 3% interest rate. So let's use that in our estimate to make it even more accurate. So here's the loan amount they had. Here's the 3% rate. Assuming they've made their payments, they should owe about $575. Now, again, this is an estimate. I'm sitting in the stands at a soccer game or at a dinner trying to help someone problem solve and figure that out. But now I've got their property taxes, and now I have their payoff. Now, one new thing we've added, and we've been so hesitant to do AVMs. How do we take data and predict what the house is worth? But what we found, my dad's always said, you can edit a bad paper much easier than you can edit a blank paper. At least it's a place for us to start with numbers. So we're buying the data and making it accessible for you. This is our own AVM. We're getting data from everyone and saying, here's what we're saying is low range for the house. Here's what we're saying based on square foot and some other variables. And here's what we'd say the high end of the range is. Now, you can use this price, or you can say, actually, I was thinking $775. So you can still put your own numbers in for the net sheet, but or you can skip it if you want to. But this at least helps us start to show a seller, depending on the scenario, when we're sitting somewhere, here's what the data is saying. I have my own opinions and I'd like to come see the house, but here's what the data is saying. And so now, just by putting an address in, all I've done is plug an address in and touch compute. And in 15 seconds, in just a few clicks, we can get a really good estimated net proceeds from your phone. So the $775, the payoff of the balance, the prorated taxes owed because time of year of closing, the closing cost, that's the title fees, the closing costs, realtor commissions, and the net at close. All in seconds. Now, a few things I skipped over. We had the seller and buyer broker fee, and we had the buyer broker fee paid by the seller. We can change that and say, no, they want to pay it they want the buyer to pay it, or they want to split it. You can set up your defaults however you want. but that's kind of how you make some of those decisions. We also have a little button here that says detailed closing costs, and it will highlight what the owner's title policy is, your escrow fees, warranty deeds, recording fees, and then of course the buyer and seller broker fee. So here's the $51,000 broken out item by item. And if they would like, you can hit this little button right here. We build a really nice report that shows you your branding and your logo, nice and formatted. And so that's what we've done. I always say we didn't invent math. We've tried to make this really, really easy with all the disclaimers. This is a good faith estimate only. Please obtain your numbers prior to closing. We've tried to make this easy and accessible from your phone in seconds. So this is the seller's net sheet. I gave you a few enhancements for it. If this is all the webinar is today, I want everybody to have this on their phone. And when you need it, it can be incredibly valuable. Now, one thing I always want to point out because I love it, it's really hard to predict what a house is going to sell for. You know, we do our best, but now offers are going to come in. And this doesn't show really well from the phone, from Zoom, I mean. But if you literally just shake your phone, that's a cue to us to say, let's run 5 net sheets at once. Let's go up 10,000, 20,000. Let's go down 10,000, 20,000, creating this $40,000 window. Let's price title insurance, closing costs, realtor commissions at each price point, giving you this window to say, you know, if we got almost 800, if we got 795, you'd clear almost 160. If you got an offer for 755, is that still going to be enough? It's still hitting your $100,000 threshold. You were saying you were wanting to clear and move into your other property. Would that still work for you? So it just helps you kind of set expectations on a listing presentation. I haven't seen many things better than this. I haven't seen anything, honestly, better than this at helping explain numbers. And so this is the seller's net sheet. Super easy. We've made a few enhancements. Again, this is free. I think this is why 500,000 people have it. I don't know what the other 500,000 are doing in real estate, but this is something I think everyone should have and know how to use. And here's where it goes. Now, this is the seller's net sheet. I said something and I just want to showcase. This has been one of our more popular sellers programs is, you know, they had said they wanted to clear 100,000 and it looks like they're going to clear about 141,000. This is actually, so I'm going to click here over on calculators down here at the bottom. And I want to highlight, because we don't do this a lot, the sell to net button. I want to sell to net a certain amount because I know you have sellers, we usually unrealistic sellers, if you have any in your state, that start with a net goal. They've done the math. They feel like if they could clear 50 grand, sell their house, take 50 grand, put a down payment on the next house, move, whatever the numbers are. Sometimes they'll throw out, they'd like to clear 100 grand. Would like to make, I don't know where these numbers come from. Maybe it's to pay off the divorce attorneys, but I'd like to clear $100,000 when you sell my house. Okay. Now, same thing, add the address, put in the address. We'll pull the property taxes for you. We'll pull the comps and show you kind of an AVM, but you can put your own estimate in there, however you want to do it. So the same program, everything still goes. Now when you hit compute, it's going to build up and tell you what you should list the house for, a number that sellers are never even focused on. All they know is they want to make 100,000. And the reason this isn't exactly 100,000, it's $600 off, is because you have to have the $731,000 number before you can compute a realtor commission, before you compute title insurance, which almost always is based on a price of a property. And so it's got to do this guess and check game. And I've sat with escrow officers and watched them and just have to go through trial and error. And why this is so powerful is sitting with a seller in the first minutes. You can pull out your phone, say, okay, $100,000. Here's the address. And then you can show them 731. They've never even seen this number or thought of it. All they're focused on is the 100,000, what they can take from this property. And then show them some comps and show them it's probably not going to be realistic. If you can do that quickly, it's amazing how much frustration you can save for you and your sellers, setting their expectations immediately. If you tell them, okay, you know what, let's see what we can do. I'll run some numbers. They've already bought the boat. They've already made the offer on the other house. They already told their parents they're moving. They've already got their hopes set on 100,000 often. And then it leads to frustration. So being able to do this quickly and get to this number as soon as possible to let them know it's going to be realistic or not realistic, I think is very powerful. And so sell to net is a net sheet in reverse. So I showed you the net sheet, normal net sheet, give us the address, tell us how much we're going to clear if we sell our property. The net sheet in reverse is sell to net right here, sell to net. And I want to make sure we at least had these two buttons down. And then I'm going to quickly just show you the buyer's quick estimate. Buyer's quick estimate's the stake, seller's net sheet buyer estimate. And this is when you go house shopping and a buyer says, I want to spend 7.25, roughly what would my payment run me in this area with these interest rates, principal, interest, taxes, insurance, PMI, everything. And roughly with 10% down, how much would I need to get into it? And the reason this is so powerful is we don't want to make anybody a lender. And lenders are almost always meeting with our clients first before we invest our time. But often they'll pre-approve us or pre-qualify us for a certain amount, let's say $1 million. It doesn't mean that's what I want to spend. And it certainly doesn't mean all the houses we go look at are going to be that price. And when rubber meets the road, when we get real, is when we start looking at houses, not really understanding how payment and down payment exactly works, especially a first-time buyer. And eventually your buyers are going to get real before they actually sign documents. And often they disappear and we wonder why. And I just think we've made this easy enough where you can hand them your phone while you're driving around and let them play with, well, what if we had more money down? If we could put 20% down, then we could avoid the PMI, put a little more down, but our payment can kind of drop to this. And so just kind of play with the numbers. I know the property taxes are a little high because I'm using a Texas version. Our taxes are higher than most of the country. But just being able to help them, I put 200, how much did I put down? 203,000. Let me put 20,000 when I'm looking down and trying to read this. Now the PMI, nope, that's not even enough. I don't want 20,000. I want 20% down. There we go. That's how you knock off that PMI. I've got to put more down, but I can drop the payment under $6,000 a month. It'd be about $5,700. So those are the real life scenarios where they're driving around with us, and maybe they don't want to call a lender again. Maybe they're just curious, but they don't want to feel dumb and go talk to the lender. Yeah, but this one's $10,000. This is where this is handy, is just payment and closing costs. Even if you're looking at an investment property, these are the questions I always have. So that was kind of our bread and butter. Buyer's estimate, seller's net sheet. The most used buttons in PalmAgent. But the other one, which is the reverse of this, I wanted to showcase, is monthly affordability. Monthly affordability, because I know and a lot of our buyers talk backwards. We budget monthly. We moved here from California to Texas or from Texas to Seattle. And we say, man, the prices here are a lot different. However, I'd like to keep my payment around $5,000 a month. Anytime a buyer tells you they want to spend a certain amount a month, how much do you want to spend? I know rates have gone up a little bit. How much home can I buy for that in this market? With 10% down, you're looking at about a $564,000 house. If you can put 5% down, you're looking at about this much house. If you can afford to put 20% down, we can get you over $600,000 in this area and keep your payment at $5,000 a month. So those are the 4 buttons I want to make sure everyone knows, everyone uses. Seller's net sheet, sell to net, which is a net sheet in reverse, if they tell us they want to net a certain amount. Buyer's estimate, just from house shopping and running numbers and different down payments. So what if we offered this? How would it change my payment? That kind of stuff. Again, not to make you a lender, just to kind of help clear up some of the fogginess for your buyers, help build strategy around offer. And then I can afford this much. How much home can I buy right now? Especially first home buyers. But a lot of us are very payment centric. And when we move, your house price doesn't always translate in every market, but payment almost always translates. This is kind of what I want to spend a month. And so those are the 4 buttons. Now, the 2 new ones I have, I'd like for us to, I want to bring David up. And I'd called David a few weeks ago. And I said, David, I'm calling in a favor. We're doing a webinar. We're going to have almost 20,000 of our top clients on the webinar. And I'd love for you to spend just 5 or 10 minutes and tell us exactly what's happening in the market today, especially concerning interest rates, inventory, because every other headline I see, it feels like it's 2008, 9, 10 again. Inventory's rising. Is that really true? And even if you don't have these questions, these are the questions on the sellers and buyers' minds. What's happening with inventory? What's happening with prices? And what's happening with interest rates? Are rates going to go back to the 3s and 4s? Are rates going to go back to the 7s? What's going to happen? Because that's causing a lot of buyers. I recently saw a graph that it's the largest gap in listings and buyers. Buyers has plummeted to almost 2020 levels back when they announced COVID and everyone had to stay home, like that level of buyers. And I think with the war, and there's just a lot of things going on, I said, David, would you come on for just a few minutes, help shed some light on exactly what's happening using data to help our clients? I'll owe you a favor. And then I'm going to show you some apps that we're building based on what David is seeing and what the market's telling us that will help us better relay and communicate some of that information to our clients. So, David, if you wouldn't mind jumping on and helping our great clients, they're all over the country, just kind of understand a little more of what's happening in the market, what the data is saying. And then I'm going to show them a couple new apps that we developed, new calculators we developed, kind of based on exactly what you're seeing in the market.
Hey, thanks, Jeremy. Well, let's get started on this, and glad to be with you today. You know, anytime I get a chance to do something with PalmAgent, I like to do it, and glad to have this opportunity to talk about what's happening in this market. So with that as sort of a backdrop, let's go ahead and let's hop in. You know, if you were to ask me right now, what are buyers most concerned with? We know that. We know it right here, the survey that was done in the first quarter of this year. The economy, mortgage rates, inventory, prices, biggest concerns for buyers right now. You know, sellers always are concerned. Can I sell the house? Can I sell it quickly with as few hassles as possible and get the most for my home? We know that. But if we talk about buyers for just a minute, you know, we're going to stay off the economy right now because certainly it's not our lane in real estate. You know, you as an agent, I think we should stay out of that relative to the economy, but we can talk about rates. We can talk about inventory. We can talk about prices and sort of stay in the area that we know and what we control. And the bottom line is, you know, rates have ticked up a little bit in the last month or so. But take a look at this. Our team put this together at Keeping Current Matters. If you were to go back to January of last year, finance $400,000, just to kind of an average amount in this country, that mortgage payment is $2,731. Do that as of April 29th, 6.5%, which is right where we sit today when this slide was made. $2,528, a savings of $200. So my message to you right now is, over the last year, mortgage payments have gotten $200 cheaper. Now, they're not, you know, what they were. Maybe we dip our toe in the 5s. You can see it right there. A 5.99% payment, $2,396. And here's the difference right now between where we stand and that payment. It's about $132. You see at the bottom right portion of the screen there. But most people are thinking, well, if I waited until then, I'm sure that payment's probably $1,000 or $2,000 cheaper, right? When we get into the 5s, it's not. But there is opportunity in the market because many people are like, we'll wait until rates go down. I got to tell you, you know, if you start to look at the forecasts, these are very, very current right here from Fannie, from MBA, from Wells Fargo. All forecasts sort of point to us bouncing around this low 6 area. You know, somewhere around 6.25%, maybe 6%, dip our toe in the 5s. I think that'll happen. If you look at this visually, this is what this looks like right here. You know, very, very flat sort of next few quarters going into next year, I think that will be true. So my message to you is certainly it's never trying to time the market relative to mortgage rates. It's always timing the market with real estate, and we got to keep that in mind with the folks that we're working with. And you see that right there. It's sort of flat market. So you can't give great advice in what's one of the most important topics to people right now, even given all the shifting sand of geopolitical events and the economy and all the things that people wonder about. We certainly can give good information based upon that. The other piece that folks are interested in is listings, right? Inventory, what's going on there? And, if you were to ask me, this is going all the way back to January of 2020, the last 5 years, we've been sort of coming out of this hole of active inventory in this country. And this is a look right here where you can see it, and it's grown. And there's one thing we can say is every region of the country in the last year has seen listings grow. The Northeast, the Midwest, the South, the West, you see them all right there. The U.S. average over the last year, a little over 4% growth in active inventory. And, even if we go to the map here and look at where they grew most in April, see a few states where listings went down: Arizona, Florida, South Carolina, you see them right there. But, all the other states in sort of this blue shade, listings grew. So depending on where you're at, that certainly is more than likely true just in the number of states that have seen a growth in inventory. Some states sort of plateauing out or staying the same. So the bottom line is, for a buyer, there's more choices. For a seller, you need to pay attention, right? This is a slide, and this is a point that I would use with every seller too, to say, hey, if you think about listing your house, how much did inventory grow, not only in our state and our area, but the neighborhood that we're in, and we know that's certainly going to determine what happens there. The bottom line is, for buyers, the influx of fresh inventory is welcome news, bringing more options to the market at an opportune time. The next piece that, if you think about with inventory, that I want to point out to you, and this is important. I would sort of put this in the memory bank or use it in a presentation or something like that. Despite inventory growth, you see it there, the blue bar, up 4.6 year over year. We're still down 12.5% from pre-pandemic levels. Okay, so you think about going back to 2019, before the pandemic came in, we're still 12% down in inventory in this country. And the truth is, 15 states, only 15 states are back above their 2019 inventory levels. You see them there in blue. The rest of the country, certainly the Northeast, down significantly in inventory, but you see all over the country states down from their pre-pandemic levels of inventory. I think there are a couple of things that I would say this sort of undersupply or lack of inventory has done. First of all, we know this, it's driven prices high. And take a look at this. Because inventories remain limited, the median home price rose to a new record high in the month of March, just a couple of months ago. That price growth has helped the typical homeowner accumulate $128,000 in housing wealth over the past 6 years. That's unreal. The number one way that people build wealth in this country is through residential real estate. The other truth is, because of limited inventory, it's kept upward pressure on prices, right? Prices haven't fallen because we don't have, one, this need for people to sell, and two, we don't have enough homes for those that want to buy them. That's always going to keep upward pressure on prices. But, if you think about price in this country, it's certainly divided based on where you live. About half the markets in this country are up year over year, half the markets down. But even the markets that are down maybe 2%. If you look at this graph right here, shows the top 50 markets in this country. Austin, Texas being the one down the most at 6%. Now, Austin went up, 75, 80% maybe in the last 5-6 years, dramatic rise. And the markets that are down are maybe down 2 to 3%. Markets that are up 3 to 4%. You see it right there. So being the local expert, being the expert in the market certainly I think is very, very important right now in delivering your expertise. And you can do it for what's most important. Many wonder what's around the corner. What are prices going to do in the next few years? This is a look from the Home Price Expectation Survey. It's a group of 100 economists, housing market experts that get together every quarter and they say, what do you think the next 5 years are going to bring? And, you see very, very, what I'll call normal price appreciation here, 2 to 3% for the next several years. Even if we kind of take this to dollars, if you took a $400,000 home over the next 5 years, that's worth $43,000 in equity. Okay, so I'm not suggesting that means everybody needs to go out and buy a home, but I am saying now is a great time to buy a home. And, I think homes that are bought today will certainly appreciate the next 5 years, certainly appreciate the next 10 years. The thing I always think about is if you could go back 10 years and buy a home, would you do it? And most people would say, yeah, how many can I get? Well, what makes you think it's going to be any different 10 years from now, right? So we're certainly coming out of a time where homes rose pretty quickly during COVID. That's kind of cooled off. Few markets coming down slightly, very little, but there's not this case to be made for national price depreciation in real estate in this country. Another thing that came out of the Home Price Expectation Survey right here, this question: when do you expect that prices in metros that posted negative appreciation, it's depreciation, last year to reach through and return to positive growth? The majority say second half of this year, beginning of next year. So that's very, very interesting. That is something we want to pay attention to. And I think we're in the turn right now in real estate. I want to leave you with two things before I wrap up and turn it back over. I think a couple of things that I want to remind you of relative to price, relative to the health of this real estate market, is the number of homeowners in this country that have a great mortgage rate is at an all-time high. Look at this right now. This is the fourth quarter of 2025. 50% of all mortgages started with a 3 or lower, 3%, 2%, everything kind of below 3.99, 50%. Look at that. In the sort of, lighter tan color, 27% were somewhere between 4% and 5.99%, and 21% higher than 6%, just a smaller portion of that. So many people, 3 out of 4 people have a great mortgage rate in this country. And that's a good thing. Of those that have a mortgage, oh, by the way, there's more equity in homes today. Take a look at this. This is, we can say confidently that 2/3 of homeowners either have their mortgage paid off or have at least 50% equity. That's astounding. You see the green portion there, 39% of homeowners own their home free and clear. 27%, have more than 50% equity. The blue portion there, 33% have homes with less than 50% equity. So the balance sheet of the American homeowner is very, very strong. That's what keeps prices high. It's why prices don't crash. It's one of the reasons that, even if we've gone through sort of this market that's cooled off, that we've continued to see price appreciation. So listen, it's great as always to be together with my friends at PalmAgent. Great to be with you today. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over.
David, thank you so much for taking a few minutes out of your day to jump on here with our great customers. We have the best partners in the world, and giving some clarity around something that's very complicated. Even if we don't have these questions, as you said, this is what the consumers are thinking about right now. These are the questions we have to address. Inventory is not getting crazy. It's actually getting healthy. This is a normal number. Prices aren't going back to 2007. They're not going to fall off a cliff. Some markets might be having some thing, but overall houses are getting more expensive over time, and interest rates aren't going back to the 3s and 4s. It's everybody, we just came out of it. Everybody's waiting for it to come back. And short of a war or a pandemic, that's not going to happen. And we don't want either one of those things. So we're actually in a healthier environment. And this is kind of what it is. And the more we can get our clients understanding that, I think the more houses we're going to sell, the more we're going to help people get into a home and not live in regret 5 years from now. So thank you so much for that. Let me jump back into the program and show you an app I'm really, really excited about. Buy Now or Later. Buy Now or Later is an appreciation calculator. Let's just get it out there. This is about appreciation and interest rates. If you have anyone telling you they're waiting for rates to come down or they're waiting for prices to come down, I've been looking at houses. This is the perfect house, the perfect neighborhood. We're going to see what happens for the next 12 months. This is the calculator for you because it can be very difficult to not have, I call it commission breath. How do you make them not go, well, yeah, of course you think it's a great time to buy. Of course you want me to buy, but I need to do what's best for me. How do we skillfully walk them through that? So Buy Now or Later is maybe the best two, this one and the next one, best two new calculators we've done in 20 years, where you literally can just walk someone through, here's a $750,000 house. Okay, we're going to assume 10% down. Rates have popped up a little bit, so 6.5% interest rates, and hit compute. So this is that quick estimate. Now, we've refreshed this and redesigned it a little bit. It has a different look and feel, so make sure you have the update. But here's the two numbers that people are usually looking for. What is it going to run me a month? And 10% down, how much am I going to need to close? Those two, how much money am I going to need? How much is it going to cost me a month? So we've been showing someone houses. They're really excited about them. Now they've gone cold and they're going to wait for rates to come down or prices to come down. People who are waiting for rates to come down or prices, it's not a good strategy. And let me show you why. So this is a progressive calculator where it says appreciation here. So I'm just going to swipe over or I'm going to click on appreciation. And I'm going to start now talking about, I'm not promising you, not 10% appreciation. What do you think is going to happen and why? What do you think is going to happen with appreciation? So just 3.5% for 2 years on a big asset adds up quick. Because someone who says, yeah, we're thinking 3% this year, it doesn't sound that bad. But here's the number. Here is the number our buyers need to see. They need to see this because no one wants to pay more. I've fallen victim to this. I've watched a vacation home I really wanted get more expensive every year, and eventually it's just out of reach. I could maybe afford it, but I'm not paying more. I don't want to pay $50,000 more than I could have bought it for here. I'll just wait and wait and wait, and pretty soon I'm just sitting on the sidelines. And so this lets you just address head on, what do you think is going to happen with appreciation, and what are you on the risk for? What would 2 years? Everybody's like, well, we're going to rent for 1 more year. We're going to buy next year. And that easily becomes 2, 3, 4, 5 years. So what is just 3% appreciation over the next 4 years going to cost you in price? This is the highlight of the app. They need to see this number. This is just math. Now, here's appreciation. You can say that's too aggressive, and I think just 1.5%. Great. So 750 is almost 800. Or I think it's going to go down, 1%. Okay, great. So you timed it perfectly and you saved some money. No one credible is really calling for this, but I don't want to lead them. We can show them the data, what the data says, but here's what just 3.5%, which is the average most people are saying, working against you for 2 years. Now you're in the 800s. And by the way, we've updated, here's the top experts, and here's what they're saying over the next 12 months. There's always one. MBA is calling it to basically be flat, but everybody else is calling for 3 to 5% for the next 12 months. And as David said, the second half of this year, I think we're right at that curve, and we don't want our clients to miss out on that. So let's just relay the information. Here's what the experts are saying. I'm not promising you anything, but I just want to show you what this looks like waiting if things get a little bit more expensive. And we also took the chart that David talked about, what Fannie just came out with this 5-year prediction for national averages. So 2%, 2.4, 2.9, 3.19, 3.26. Let's take that same house and compound it at each of these prices and show them what that is in 5 years. That's highlight number 2. This is the first number everybody needs to kind of be aware of is what does a little appreciation working against us look like? And show me what the experts, this 100-person panel, this is their job. This is all they do is study this. What are they thinking based on population rates, new builds, prices, inflation, all this stuff? Where do they think we're going to be? And now this $750,000 house that we're just going to rent for a few more years, it's now $861,000. And now this is one of my favorite things we've ever done. I think everyone should get this tattoo. This is 75 years of national average appreciation of homes. Year by year. By the way, this 50-year period here, 50 years, almost undefeated. 2 years were less than 1% combined. This is why I think we don't talk about appreciation. I think most of us experienced this market. Most of us worked in this market, and it was traumatic. People lost their homes. This was an ugly, ugly time. This was stated income. What could go wrong? How much do you make? Just write it down there. This was appraisers that would just kind of say it's worth whatever someone's willing to pay, which is kind of true, but that created a lot of issues. 0 down payments, and, a massive build of oversupply. It caused a great recession, and that is not the market we're in today. And so 75 years of data. I wish I had had this earlier. I wish more buyers knew about this. When I'm sitting there thinking about an investment property, this gives me confidence. This gives me confidence to say this has been one of the greatest assets you can own. And if you think it's going to do something else, just help me understand why. Maybe it'll go down 1% in a year, but overall, over time, houses get more expensive. Now, we've also added this for you. We've added a button that will then take you and show you your state. So show me now, 75-year data doesn't exist in every state, but we can go back 50 years. Here's what Texas has done the last 50 years. And then now show me my local market. Show me my local market. The last 50 years, show me what houses have done in this market. This can help buyers get more confident that houses aren't going to get cheaper. And trying to time the interest rates and time the market is a fool's errand. This is something that we can just pull out and show the receipts and say, hey, listen, I'm all for you doing whatever you want to do. However, just in $40 trillion of inflation, $40 trillion of debt, printing more dollars and putting it in circulation, make assets cost more because now there's a lot more dollars competing for fewer things. So part of this is inflation. It's baked in. Houses get more expensive over time, and we have to do a better job of helping people understand that without them feeling like we're trying to sell them a house. I'm trying to help them. And this is the best story I've seen of going through and walking them through their specific numbers, not a general principle. Let's look at the price they're shopping in. Let's show them what a couple years of waiting looks like. Almost everybody I know that sold a house, even when they timed it perfectly in 2021, regretted it because houses get more expensive over time. And then you have this button here, slide one more over, and just show them, buying at today's price, you can always, if rates come down, I'm not promising you the house appraisals, I'm not promising you all this stuff. I'm just showing you the math and how it works, that you can go through and say, what if rates did come back to the 4s? Great, I'll show you that. What if they only came back to the high 5s? Great. It's better than paying a higher price for the house and locking it in at a lower rate. They're trying to pay, even if I pay a little more, I want to get a 5% rate. But look, you're paying almost $1,000 more a month. The best thing you can do is buy the house right. And once you believe houses are going to get more expensive over time, this is not a good strategy. Buying and refining is always a better way because you can't refinance the price. The price is the price is the price. But you can always have the option, if rates do come back down, to refi the rate. And here's what that would look like. But more importantly, this is the big part for me, more than double equity. This is what sets families up and pays for their kids' college. This is the equity. You're missing out on 3 years in the market. As David said, it's not timing the market, it's time in the market. So this is the kicker right here. You want to get benefit of this appreciation, the appreciation of owning a home. So buy now or later. I don't want to show you too much today, but I think this is something that for a lot of your clients that have these questions, when you hear them saying things like they want to wait and see what happens with prices, they want to wait and see what happens with interest rates, this is what I would go to. This is what I'd say. Hey, I have this really cool calculator. Let me kind of go through your scenario and look, and let's just kind of play it out both ways. What if it goes down? What if it goes up? What if rates come down? What if rates go this? I always laugh. I've sold 6 homes and I'm not a real estate agent. My next door neighbor lives next door to me because of this calculator, because he's one of the smartest guys I know, and said, I'm going to wait for rates to come down. And I said, Brian, you can buy a house right now. You know that. Like, you actually can buy it for under ask or maybe less than it's worth, whatever that means. Like, he got a decent percentage off in this market and is very glad he did 12 months ago, because it's worth more today than it was then. So this is what I set him through over dinner and just walking through the math. And within 2 months, he had a house under contract. So buy now or buy later. I hope you feel like this was worth it. For that detailed client, for the emotional client, who's kind of sitting there trying to figure out what's best for them to help them land the plane. Now, I'm looking at time. I want to show one more. I want to show, this is the last calculator we launched called True Value Analysis. And this is a net sheet on steroids. This is in this market, this was a horrible calculator if we launched it in 2021. But as most of our markets, houses are racking up days on the market, there's other things our sellers need to look at and consider. And I want to show you some enhancements we made to this that I hope will benefit everyone. So True Value is going to be the last one I show. True Value. Now, again, I'm going to start with adding the address. I'm going to go in and put 9008 Thompson Drive, Argyle, Texas. And it's going to say, there's no real training. I can show you this. Your title rep can show you this. But hopefully you remember, as long as I can put the address in, I know it's called a True Value Analysis. I can go through and just click next, next, next. And now, again, you can edit these, but here's our market range using data. So you can go in and say, oh, this is 700 and I want to change this to 850, but it's easier to edit a bad document than a blank document. At least it gives us some numbers to start with. And sometimes to help a seller say, I think it may be worth more than this, but here's what the data's saying, just as another source. Now, here's another thing we've added. A house sitting on the market has things like property taxes. And a house that sits for a year, especially if it's empty, if you've already purchased something else, those property taxes don't increase the value of the house. It's just a sunk cost or holding cost. Homeowners insurance, HOA fees, electricity, gas, internet. So we're buying data. We know this house has a pool. And so you can say, well, the pool is actually not $150 a month. Back to editing a bad document, it's actually $250 a month for their pool. Great. So what is the lawn maintenance, pest control? We're taking averages in each of your markets to help you fill this out. And when I hit use the data, now I've got my market price, what I would call the low end range and the high end range. I've added some of those holding costs, the costs of the house sitting on the market. And again, you may not even want to share this with a seller, but you should know this is what it's costing them to sit on the market. We better price it right so that they don't rack up too many days, because they've already purchased something else and that they don't want this eroding their net. I often say, we get so excited about getting a high price for our house, but really it's about how much do we take home? How much do we take? What's our net that we move on with? That's the real number that should matter. Not, oh, yeah, but we made a $50,000 concession, but we got 780. It doesn't mean anything. How much do you make? So this is the first of its kind. We ran net sheets at 3 different price points, and then we model out 3 different distances of time on market, saying that if we price it on the low end more aggressively, in this market, we're estimating 30 days. Now, in your market, maybe you say, no, that's still 60 days. And even if we price it at market, it's 90 days. Play with the numbers however you want to analyze it and see what the story's saying. But given all of that information, I'm going to go back to 30, 60. And if we go at the top end range, this isn't a crazy price. However, it's not going to sell as fast. We're going to need some appreciation to come into the market. It's going to take a little longer to sell if we go in at this price, the price that they're pushing us for. And when all of that's considered, here's your payoffs, because if it sits on the house on the market longer, your payoff's going to be lower because you've been paying your mortgage for 6 months instead of 1 month. All of your closing costs and fees, it gets more foot traffic when you price it more aggressively. Here's the part that I wanted to highlight: holding cost. That's the taxes, the insurance, the HOA, the pool, all that stuff that really doesn't add value. It just really erodes your net, your takeaway from the property. And when you factor all of that in together, let me show you 3 different net sheets. So instead of showing you 1, we're showing you 3. Here's 3 different net sheets at 3 different prices and 3 different times on market. And maybe, an extra $5,000 is worth it sitting on the market for 6 months of showings. Maybe it's not. There's no guarantee it's going to sell. I'm just showing you different times on market based on prices and strategies and comps and history. Because we all know this is a reality in a lot of our markets, reductions. What if the house sits and buyers get insecure of why didn't everyone else want this? And we have to come in and hit this toggle and now talk about reductions. This can get upside down really quick. Just a 5% reduction. Now you're here. You would have done better actually pricing it aggressively and selling it fast. You would have made more money. 10% reduction. Prices, houses that are priced at the top end of the market and set for 6 months, we're seeing 10% reductions. Or you can say, no, we're seeing 8% reductions. So play with the numbers and see what the numbers say. But real quickly, this can get upside down. And if you need something to go back to one of your sellers to talk about a price reduction, if you need something to help them get more realistic up front on a sales price, what are we going to list this for? This might be the tool for you, especially if you have a more analytical seller that needs to kind of be walked through this and understand why pricing a house at the top end of the range doesn't always make them the most money. Now, we also have market data we're pulling for you. So if you want to see what the median list price in your area, median list price of new listings, price per square foot, this kind of median list price and the new listings, that kind of tells you something there. Average days on market, median days on market, price increases, price decreases. 38% of houses are dropping the prices. And inventory, how many homes are on the market in this area in Argyle. So this will show you city data. You can look by zip code or you can look by metro area. So depending on some of your markets, if that ends up, influencing your numbers, you can look at it any different way. I want to look at zip code or I want to look at a metro area and see what the comps and what the numbers are telling us is happening in the market. We tried to make this really cool for you guys, and it's free. I can't think of a reason why everyone wouldn't have this on their phone in 2026. We're also showing you how many homes sold last month below list, 74% homes. So that's just a national number. 44% had concessions, 18% of homes had a price cut. So this just kind of helps you support the data. I hope everyone has seen this. This has been taught in schools for years, for decades. Your best chance, this is a curve, bell curve, prices, we don't usually chase markets up over time. Prices come down over time when a house sits. your best chance to get the most money and net the most money is to price it right and sell it in this window. That's just the truth. And then my favorite part of all of this, if you hit this button up here in the top right, you see a 5-page report. We call it a true value analysis, highlighting all of the closing cost, the holding cost. Let me go here. Oh wait, I didn't do it. Sorry, I hit the wrong button again. I get excited. I got carried away. The True Value Report, TVA. The True Value Report is a beautiful 5-page report highlighting everything I just talked about. You know, understanding market timing, the specifics on your area and what the houses are selling for, how long they're sitting. You know, here's what it would look like if it's set for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months. Here's the analysis of low end market and high price. And then at my recommended price, what you would clear if we sold in 60 days and kind of what that would look like. All done for you in seconds from your phone. So I hope you guys like this. I'm tough to shut up. One more thing I left off on buy now or later. We've now built 750,000. I have to show this because this is brand new as of today. When you go up here to the top right in the share sheet, we built a beautiful 5-page report that tells the story just like True Value Analysis of if you buy today, the comparison of buying later, how it changes your payment. This is the big part. What has happened with home price appreciation in your national market, state, and your local markets? This to me helps sellers, buyers really get their head around houses get more expensive over time, and we don't want to miss out on this market. It's probably in our best interest if we're buyers, but buyer today is the best thing we could be. Trying to time the market and buy next year and see what happens with rates is a fool's errand. I hope you enjoyed this webinar today. I hope you got a lot out of it. Chris, if you wouldn't mind, put up a QR code. I have one ask from everyone. One ask. If you got something out of this, there is a 1-minute survey, and it really does help us and our title partners out. This app is free. I know there's a $1 a month marketing thing that we lose money on. This is something that everyone should have. We've got some really cool enhancements in this that I didn't have time to go through. We'll do that on the next webinar. But if you wouldn't mind hitting that QR code, giving us a quick just here's what I liked, here's what I don't like, here's what's helping me, here's what's, that kind of thing. This helps us. It helps our title partners. Thank you everyone so much for being a part of this community. We spend every waking day trying to build tools that help our partners and help you all win and communicating complex information with your buyers and sellers. So thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you got a lot out of this. Watch for our next webinar. We're going to do another one next month and be able to go through some other stuff that we just ran out of time. Hope you like our new enhancements. We'll talk to you all very soon. Have a wonderful day.